Hey, I'm Siobhan, and I love talking about all the things related to freedom and personal growth. And I'm on a journey to redefine freedom on my own terms as I become the woman I desire to be. Each week, I'll share in real time what I'm learning as I do my inner work while creating a safe space for my listeners to feel seen. If you desire to be free and live a life that feels good to you, then you're in the right place for beautiful conversations that's going to support you on your journey to freedom. Welcome to the Siobhan J. Middleton podcast. Now let's start the show. Hey, welcome back to another episode. I'm so glad you are here for another week. So I want to share with you, kind of piggybacking off of last week where I talked about living with PTSD. This week I want to share how I'm managing it, right? And I've had several conversations with women who actually told me like, hey, I have PTSD too. And it blew my mind because the way that people are now being forthcoming with, a mental illness or trauma, it's really eye-opening because specifically in the Black community, we don't share a lot of these types of things. And so I just want to kind of share my perspective and how I'm managing it to offer support for other people. I will say the PTSD for me shows up in different ways when I'm triggered. And so when I am triggered, there's an emotional shutdown for me. And there's some other things that happen. However, what I want to talk about now is that as I'm living with it, this feeling of my nervous system being dysregulated, which I can actually feel that. I'm also hypervigilant, which I talked about in last week's episode. And for me, what that feels like is being on edge. And when I looked up the definition for hypervigilant, it said a feeling of increased alertness and being sensitive to your surroundings. And so for me, the way that that looks is that I'm jumpy. I am definitely sensitive to things happening around me. I can feel like an unsettling in my stomach where it's not necessarily like butterflies, but just, how you get that uneasy feeling, but it's constant and I am aware of it. And I can be hyper anxious and just this feeling of being on edge where I'm not grounded, I'm not centered. It's like I'm waiting on alert, like I'm waiting for something to happen. And it is such a, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but the feeling is uneasy. However, when I was talking to my therapist about this, the fact that I've been in a hypervigilant state for longer than I can remember is mind blowing. And now that I'm in my own apartment and maneuvering through life in a different way, I can now feel the being on edge feeling, right? The hypervigilant. I can now feel that like I'm so aware and I'm sensitive versus before I was numb to it. And you know how when you're in a situation for so long, even if it's uncomfortable, you can become comfortable in it because it becomes your norm. And I believe that that is why I wasn't aware of being in a hypervigilant state. And so now that I'm in such a place of peace and ease, I am aware of what it feels like where my nervous system is dysregulated. And so I believe that I've had PTSD. It comes from like childhood, right? Because you guys know I've talked a lot about my relationship with my mother and then also the lack thereof from my father, but also there's trauma from adulthood. And I am learning now that I'm aware and I got diagnosed with PTSD, how do I need to manage and take care of myself? And I'm learning how to nurture myself in a very different way than I ever have before and really tending to myself. And so I'm going to share what I'm doing to manage the PTSD in a healthy way. And my hope is that if you can relate some of the things I'm going to share with you, they can be helpful for you as well. Okay, so I have a list here of what I'm doing. I recently started using specific crystals, which is the amethyst and carnelian. And both of them are good for managing anxiety. So I carry the crystals in my bra. I'll put them in my pockets. I'll have them in my purse. Like I try to keep those two stones on me, especially if I'm feeling on edge. Like if I can feel it, I'll make sure that I have those crystals around me to just kind of keep me at ease. And I do notice that they have been working. Now, I'm not keeping them on me as much now because everything that I'm going to share with you today, I notice that I am not in a hyper vigilant state. Not that I can't go in and out of it, but right now I have not been triggered where I'm in this space of hypervigilance, if you will. All right, so that's the first thing, is that I'm using specific crystals. Again, amethyst and carnelian, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, is what I'm using. There's other stones as well that you can use for managing anxiety, but those are the two that I have at home, and those are the two that I just chose to use. Also, I go to therapy weekly, and sometimes, depending on how intense things are happening in my life, I will go to therapy twice per week. And I heard this, I believe I was listening to a podcast, or maybe I was seeing something on Instagram. I can't remember where I heard this, but it really opened my mind that therapy is a luxury. And I don't think I've ever looked at therapy as a luxury before, even though I've been in and out of therapy for years. But when I heard that, I'm like, you know what? It is. Like, and I need to treat it as such, and never, ever, ever take my therapist for granted and all of the support that she is providing for me to heal on a day-to-day basis. And so because I value therapy, and I know specifically in this season, because there's grief and I'm healing and a lot of things are happening, I know that I need to make sure that I have a therapist on deck. And especially because also this therapist is the one who diagnosed me with PTSD. And so she's able to support me in that way through the different practices and tools that she uses with me during our sessions. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm reading specific books that are either self-development or spiritual books. And so I'm going to do a whole nother podcast on the books in itself, but I just want to give you a list here, and maybe you can check them out for yourself, to just have some spiritual books or self-development books to have to begin to do your own inner work. So right now I am reading Ask and It Is Given. I believe that's what it's called, Ask and It Is Given. And I'll link to each one of these books in the show notes. And that is a really good book. And I'm only reading a little bit every day. And it's by Abraham and Jerry Hicks. I'm also reading a little bit of How to Do the Work by Nicole, I think it's Laperte. I could be pronouncing that incorrectly, but again, the links will be there. I'm also in a book club with my friend, and we're reading The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I believe I'm going to do a whole episode on that book in itself because it is so amazing. And then lastly, I just started reading Rest is Resistance, a manifesto. And so with each one of these books, they're supporting me on a spiritual level, but also as I'm continuing to do my inner work. And so I'm choosing to read passages from each one, or I'll choose a book just for the morning, for my morning ritual, just begin to put that in my spirit. Also, I am being mindful of my triggers and my thoughts, specifically with people that trigger my PTSD, with places and with things. And so as long as I'm being mindful of the triggers, which I don't know them all the time, but I am much better aware of them now than I've ever been, and being mindful of my thoughts that I have. So when I'm thinking negative thoughts and I'm in a negative space, okay, where is that coming from? Is that from a wounded space? Is that, where is this particular thought coming from? And then also the triggers, like certain people, places and things, I really, 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 really have to protect my energy at all costs. And because I'm aware of okay, you have PTSD, these are some of your triggers. You got to make sure that you protect yourself so that you're not in a situation where the PTSD can be activated, if you will, or ignited. I don't know what's the best word to say for that. I've been listening to the song by Janae Aiko. I'm probably pronouncing her last name incorrectly, but the song is called Triggers Protection Mantra. And when I tell you that song was on repeat, it literally for days and days and days, it's the only song that I listen to. And I'll link to it in the show notes as well. And it's just such a healing song. It really grounds me and just, it feels like meditation. Like it's just energetically, it just feels really, really good to my spirit. Also, some of the things that I've been doing as I'm nurturing and tending to myself as I'm managing the PTSD is I've been going for morning walks, which y'all know I talk about walking all the time. And with the hustle and bustle of life and just adjusting to this new space and environment, I fell off track with walking. And so I had to check in like, okay, what are the things that you do and you've done that keeps you grounded? And I'm like, oh, you go for walks. Remember those? So I started walking again, drinking more water. And I went out and I bought a water bottle. And then as I'm drinking the water, I'm like, I mean, I'm not getting as much in as I want to. And I'm like, you really enjoy water with fresh lemon juice. And so I started buying lemons like all the time. And so every day I'm squeezing lemons in my water and I'm really, really enjoying that. If you've been following me on the gram, I have been cooking a lot. Well, let me not exaggerate. I've been cooking more. Let me say that. Two of my great friends bought me a cookbook. So I have Tabitha Brown's new cookbook. And then I also have another cookbook called Staples Plus Five, I think it's called. So one is plant-based, one is not. And I've really been enjoying cooking out of these cookbooks. And they're both by Black women, which I absolutely love. I'll link to those in the show notes as well. And not only as it relates to cooking, but I've also been feeding myself. And what I mean by that, I am a snacker. So I will drink a cup of coffee in the morning and then snack throughout the day. And then some days I went without having a meal at all. And when I noticed that, I'm like, oh, this is why you're not getting enough nutrients. You're not giving your body what it needs. And so I was like, okay, we got to switch this up. So actually making sure that I have some breakfast or I at least have like some type of pastry or something with my coffee, having lunch, having dinner, making sure that I'm eating fruit, like in my vegetables. And so I've been really conscious of the food that I'm consuming in addition to cooking more. I've been reading. So not only am I reading the books that I've shared with you, but there's a couple of fiction books that I'm reading as well because I really enjoy some good fiction. I decided to go back. So I read 50 Shades of Grey, like, oh my goodness, when it first came out. And then one day I was like, you know what? I want to read 50 Shades of Grey again. And so I checked it out from the library and I've really been enjoying that. And what I'm going to do, I think once I finish the book, I haven't seen the movie yet, so I'm going to watch the movie after I finish the book. But there's some other fiction books that I'm reading as well. Another thing that I'm doing is having honest, transparent conversations with my friends and really allowing my friends to hold space for me and sharing, okay, I had a PTS trigger or my nervous system is dysregulated and this is what it feels like. And just really being able to process out loud with my friends and share with them. And then knowing that it's a safe space, that has been really, really, really helpful. Also, just sitting still. Like I love, 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 love sitting down on my pink sofa and just looking out the window and listening to my water fountain and smelling incense or candles that I have burning and just allowing my mind to take a break so that I can think, right? Another thing that I am really into right now is being a plant mom. So right now I have 9 plants and energetically they feel so good in my home and I have them, I believe I have them I actually have them in every room. And that feels really good. And it's really energizing for my body. It's very soothing. I shared on Instagram how I have this plant called, I think it's Calathea. I could be pronouncing it wrong, but it's also known as a praying plant. So in the morning or the day cycle, the leaves fall, but then during the night cycle, the leaves go up in like a prayer position. And I didn't know that that was the type of plant that it was. But when I tell you I'm in awe of this plant, so that has really been soothing for my nervous system and just connecting with my plants feel really good. Another thing that I forgot to put on my list, but this just came to mind, decorating my apartment. Like y'all, when I tell you that brings me so much joy, finding things for my home. I'm really in this space of like making sure that everything that I bring in is something that I want and that delights me. So I've been doing that, and that feels really good. Another thing is that I journal a lot, like really getting my thoughts down on paper and just freeing my mind and putting everything down. So that has felt really good, which I've always been someone who journals, so that shouldn't be surprising. But I've been writing way more than I ever have lately. Another thing that I've been doing is just taking time to listen to my body. What is my body saying that it needs? Do I need to rest? And do I need to take a nap? Do I just need to sit still and just listening to see what is it that you need in this moment? Do you need to have some fun? Do you need to go out and kick it? Do you need a glass of wine or a drink? Like, what do you need? And listening to my body and then honoring what I need. And let me say this. Well, I'll say what I'm going to say after I finish this part. I've also been intentional with breathing, like taking deep breaths throughout the day has felt really good. And then also saying affirmations specifically to help soothe my nervous system. And so an affirmation that I got out of the book, How to Do the Work, was, I am safe and I am at peace. So all throughout the day, I'll say that I am safe and I am at peace. And that has been helpful as well. Now, this is what I want to say. I don't do all of these things every single day, right? Because this is a long, long, long list. But I do my best that when I listen to my body and my body is saying, okay, it's time for us to read, or it's time for us to journal, or it's time for therapy, or what have you, that is what I'm doing. I am not perfect at all of these things, but I do know as I've been incorporating these things or these tools or what have you in my life, I am not as on edge as I have been, right? And slowing my life down so I can take it in is very important, because I'm someone who takes action, and I take action really quickly and I react really quickly. And so I have to slow things down so I can check in with myself emotionally to see, okay, what is going on? Are you being triggered right now? What do you need? And also talking to my inner child, because I'm noticing that's the part that's getting triggered the most as it relates to the PTSD. And so I have a picture of my 6-year-old self on an altar here at my home. I also had saved this same picture as a screensaver. And so it just reminds me to check in with that particular part, my inner child, and what does she need? How does she need to be nurtured? What is she looking for? And I believe what's happening is everything that I shared with you, I'm actually just reparenting myself. I'm reparenting the younger version of myself that didn't get what she needed from her parents. And so these are just some of the things that I'm doing. And I am now at a place of ease where I haven't felt the unsettling in my stomach. I haven't felt on edge. And I know it's because of these tools that I have put in place to take care of myself. And so I share that with you. Oh, one more thing that I've been doing. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me share finding joy in beautiful moments. And so I've been taking time to like savor the moment and what are some of the things that are bringing me joy, and just keeping a list of that. And even that has helped with this process as well. So hopefully what I shared with you today, whether you have PTSD or whatever, like if you're going through any life transition, if you are dealing with any mental illness, anything trauma related, if you are grieving, if you are in pain, if you're hurt, and you're like, where do I start? What do I do? Anything that I shared today could be very, 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 very helpful for you, no matter what is going on. And I would love to hear from you. Like, you can shoot me a DM on Instagram. You can email me if you choose to. You can also leave a comment on Apple Podcasts and let me know, what did you think about the episode? Don't forget to rate it 5 stars. I greatly appreciate it. Snap a picture of the podcast and share it on IG, because that's where I hang out. Also, if you found this episode inspiring or encouraging, text the link to a friend and say, hey girl, listen to this. This is what I'm listening to. Or if you know someone who has PTSD, here's a great episode to listen to. And then also, if you've been encouraged and you want to support my work in any capacity, I love coffee. I love, 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 love coffee. So feel free to treat me to a cup or two by clicking the link in the show notes, and I will be very delighted. And then I just want to send you so much love and light. And thank you for your patience as I'm getting back into the flow of podcasting and sharing in real time. Thank you for listening week after week. And again, I want to hear from you. So don't forget to share. And I'm sending you love and light. Until next time.